Hey there. Been a whole year since I did a video. What have you been up to? Me? Well, nothing too exciting, just a couple of things. The main thing I guess is I quit teaching, like really recently. Yeah, let's talk about it. When I started this channel back in 2020, I had very high hopes for 2021. The very first video that I planned was actually the one about lessons learned from teaching in COVID. I was so sure that we were over the slump. After all, schools would be reopening soonish for all students instead of the blended thing that my school had been doing. Vaccines were looking promising. People were sticking to the mask mandates, at least in my area. Things seemed good. On top of that, I don't know, I felt like progress was happening on all fronts. I discovered that I could do VTubing, which reignited some of my creative passions in writing and music. I started thinking about LGBT advocacy again, which had sort of faded from my consciousness after I became unable to volunteer where I used to after moving back in 2019. I felt productive again. I began making plans, and it all began with those videos and this channel. But it was going to bleed into my work at my school and into those hobbies outside of it. The fog was lifting, and I was going to take advantage of it. But then New Year's happened, and things kind of spiraled from there. I did not have a very good New Year's. I ended up driving home and I spent the rest of the night thinking about my life and weighing my choices and everything that I had done up to that point. And I didn't really like what I saw. The next day was worse, and the next. Pretty much every day of that break tore and tore into my emotional stability. Things got pretty grim, and when the break ended, I had to go back to the classroom. It went about as well as you can expect. Almost immediately, I could tell things were wrong. For starters, my ability to find creative solutions to problems, one of my best assets as a teacher, was severely dampened. I couldn't think as quickly, I wasn't as motivated. Then there was the fact that I started taking everything personally. After PLC meetings and talks with assistant principals, after evaluations and talks with literacy coaches, even after looking at test scores, which I've always argued don't reflect the full picture of teaching, and thus I've always tried to ignore, I found myself privately having breakdowns and panic attacks. Intrusive thoughts began to bleed into my everyday life. I couldn't go through more than a 5-minute car ride without having to stop myself from crying. I was getting home and immediately passing out. As far as work, it all became too overwhelming. Worst of all, despite all evidence, I began to doubt that I had any place as an educator. Then the school year ended. Summer came and I decided to do summer school as a way to get more income. This was dumb. Honestly, I really should have used the summer to recover. But, hindsight is 2021. What this meant then is that when this school year started, I was no better mentally or emotionally. And when I went into the school year, I was already burnt out from the previous year and from summer school. Still, I tried my best to carry on and move forward, and yet the problems got worse, and the pressures only got compounded by the expectations of the job. And here I want to pause the video, because this is the part that I really want to talk about. See, all my problems were personal. I get that. And they were pretty bad. But I do feel like they could have been manageable. In fact, I know for a fact that they were manageable, speaking from the future. But they were impossible to deal with while I was a teacher, and to me, that's a problem that deserves highlighting. I mean, I was doing the right things. I was talking to people. I was going to therapy. I was trying to take care of myself. But I was also a teacher, and that pretty much meant that I was destined to keep spiraling. Here, let me explain. When the school year began, our county had us watch a video welcoming us back. It talked about the challenges we surely would experience, but tasked us to keep in mind the needs of students and to avoid negativity. After all, everything we do is for the children. It is our responsibility, our duty, our honor. And what a brilliant way it was to shut down concerns. As the school board debated the mask mandates, and as a new program was instituted, adding an additional task to the teacher's plate, later still in the year, when teachers were covering classes or being pushed to produce results in the second year of a life-altering pandemic, the reminder that we are here for the students was a common refrain. What I did not hear was someone reminding teachers to look out for each other and to ask if they were okay. I heard people talking about standards and check-ins. I heard pacing guides and county mandates. But I didn't hear a reminder to not respond to emails after work or to spend my weekends with my family. I heard reminders about the need to be flexible for our students, about parent contacts, about paperwork, about the need for positive reinforcement for the students. But not once did I hear about the good work that any teacher in my building was doing. And why would we? After all, we're here for the students. See, it may sound selfish, but I think this cult of martyrdom, this fetishization of sacrifice, is the main problem in the culture of education. Now, at this point, there will be three camps. Those who didn't know their problem was this bad, those who think I'm a whiny baby, and those who already came to these conclusions and are going to wait patiently for the rest to catch up. For the rest of you, yes, this problem is this bad, and yes, it is a problem. Look, at every other workplace you get Employee of the Month, or the infamous pizza parties, or raises based on performance, or something letting you know that you matter beyond being a warm body in a place. In education, you don't really get that. You're supposed to get that from the innate feeling of gratification that you get from helping children grow. The thing is, this isn't a hobby, it's a job, and teachers are people. Recognition matters, consideration matters. Relationships are give and take, and what we have now is a scenario where teachers are made to sacrifice with little or no consideration on the basis of their responsibility to children, holding them hostage against the teacher's conscience as a way to get them to give the desired results. And that's just not sustainable. And that's just getting into the basic needs of feeling like I matter at my workplace. Let's talk about work-life balance. Here we have a tweet from Dr. Steve Perry, who has 56,000 followers, which says that you cannot be a great principal or educator and have a work-life balance. He also says that to be great, the best you can hope for is work-life alignment, missing your kids' games until they become students at your school. A lot of people openly disagree with the sentiment, but not all of them. And what's worse, this is more of a saying the quiet part out loud type of thing, because looking at the way education is set up, this is kind of the system. The expectation is that you call parents, read papers, give detailed, individualized feedback. You have to read reports, create small group plans, know individually where each student is at on each standard, plan your lessons, write the lesson plans and put them on Canvas in an accessible manner. Worksheets and stuff that is easy to grade tends to be bad because it doesn't show much of their thinking and reasoning, so you have to be creative with your assignments as well. Also, make sure you have differentiation. All in all, it's a lot. It means late days, staying after school to get it done, or working on the weekends. And that is the expectation. That's something we all know intrinsically. It's always been. And that was before COVID, before the stresses of the pandemic. With everything going on, teachers needed flexibility from the field of education, and there was none to be had. Instead, because of the deficit in learning and scores and how far behind these kids were, everyone was feeling even more pressure to show some type of results, some type of growth, and to keep working despite whatever issues were still going on in their personal lives. And there were certainly issues still happening, as everyone alive this past year can remember. For me, this manifested as me spending my weekends bedridden, trying to recover, and then finally getting the energy to do something at around 8 p.m. on Sunday, at which point I would finally do my lesson plans and Canvas stuff. My planning periods were filled with meetings and grading and covering classes and reports, so the weekends were really the only time I could get that done. The problem then was that laundry and dishes were stacking up, which was not good for my overall well-being. It was a mess all around. Meanwhile, my overall mental health continued to dip lower and lower. Eventually, it became too much, and after failing to find career switches within the field of education to find something tech-based or something less stressful, I began looking for other jobs. Once I found one, I put in my 30-day notice as a way to keep my license and immediately saw a shift, which is part of what inspired this video to be made. See, I had mentioned earlier on that I believed that my issues could have been manageable while still being a teacher. In fact, I know for a fact that they were manageable. And the reason for that is because once I put in my 30 days notice, a lot of my mental health problems were easier to deal with. Let me explain. The very first thing I did after I turned in my 30-day notice was to stop worrying about my lesson plans, and this, more than anything, was the biggest factor in determining my mental health. As I had mentioned, by this point I was spending all of my weekends bedridden, and when I finally had the energy to do something, I would focus on work stuff since that had to take priority. Then, when that was done, I would do whatever chores I could before going to bed, usually too late, but I digress. After the notice, however, I switched those around. Once I finally got energy, I would prioritize my house stuff, laundry, dishes, litter boxes. Then, when I was done, I would work on my Canvas stuff, since that was the more important part. And then, if I had time, I would do my lesson plans. On nights when I didn't have time, I would just do the Canvas stuff and then go to bed, as I began prioritizing going to bed on time as well. This was groundbreaking. For starters, this did not affect my ability to do my job at all, as all my lessons were grounded in Canvas, and doing the lesson plans was just for observation purposes anyway. However, being able to take care of my house weekly and to go to sleep on time, to live in a clean environment again, it did something to me. I felt better. I could breathe better. And to think it could have been that easy? I wasn't worried about writing the I can't statements on the board. I wasn't worried about X, Y, or Z. I just taught. I did what I could. Novel idea, right? To do what one can during times of crisis? I never heard that before though. Not before it was too late to matter. According to PBS NewsHour, a RAND survey shows that 1 in 4 teachers were likely to quit, which leads me to believe that many haven't heard it either. The solution is simple though. Put the focus on teachers for once. Show them that they matter and that you care about them. Encourage them to take care of themselves and each other. Remind them to value their personal time and to practice self-maintenance as a means to stay healthy, mentally and physically. Work expectation-wise, things need to be simplified and condensed where possible. There's a lot of repetition, a lot of wasted work. In my case, admin could easily see what I posted on Canvas, so a well laid out Canvas module could serve as my lesson plans for the week. A template for the Canvas assignment that included the I can statement and standards could replace the same in the classroom. The removal of these superfluous things would mean less busy work on the part of teachers and more time polishing the pieces that matter or taking care of their own needs depending on when the work was being done. All it takes, again, is a willingness to adjust, a willingness to admit that things are not perfect and that that's okay. Work with things as they are, not as how you want them to be. But what do I know? I no longer work there. So, yeah, that's about it. As for this channel, I will be making videos again, hopefully. I don't have a schedule, so I'll make them whenever I feel like it and about whatever I want. I'll probably be less structured, and they won't all have to be about education anymore since, I'm not a teacher. I'll still do a few educational videos here and there. There's a few books and topics I want to cover and a few lessons I wanted to do. But I also want to talk about the Hell of a Boss finale, so I'm definitely doing that when it airs. Cause like the saw Blitz had on the couch, way too relatable. It lives in my head rent free. Anyway, until next time, thank you for hanging out with me. And if you're a teacher watching this, best of luck. And remember, don't be a martyr. You're more than your job. Later.